Today we're going to talk about our favorite lady CEO. She's one of our favorite CEOs, period. We're going to go in, we're going to review the latest earnings call from a company called AMD. Are you ready to do this, Patrick?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's start the show.
Okay, great.
So, Patrick, let's talk about AMD's CEO and let's share with our audience why they should consider AMD. Can you share a little bit about AMD's CEO and the upcoming earnings we are about to review?
Okay, so Dr. Lita Su is a well-accomplished electrical engineer, graduated from MIT with a PhD, and she's held numerous executive leader positions in across the corporate America, and she's currently the CEO of AMD, and she's received numerous awards and accolades
Yeah,
for her leadership.
we're gonna definitely go into that during the show. And Patrick, oftentimes we say the way of a company is the way of the CEO. Do you still share those sentiments?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so when we go through AMD's earnings, you will see why we are such a big fan of Dr. Lisa Su and what she has done with AMD and why we believe it is a top pick for those who want to invest in a company that's going to make you a lot of money. This is just the TV show just explaining AMD's earnings. Check this out.
Yes, Christina. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with food. But AMD did it again, and its shares are reacting in after-hours trading. The chipmaker posted revenue of $4.8 billion. That's up almost 50% compared to a year ago, with earnings of 92 cents, which you can see on your screen. It is a big beat. Shares are jumping in after-hour trading after the company sold pricier chips for gaming and data center servers. So that helped offset any type of global supply snags. Its enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom segment, which encompasses that gaming consoles, that climbed 17% just from quarter to quarter. And full year guidance came in strong. The company predicts sales will grow 31% in 2022. The CEO just saying on the call right now, a lot of that growth will come from servers, and that's also helping push up the stock prices of chip makers like Qualcomm as well as Nvida. Its new Radeon super chips with improved performance are also helping steal market share away from Intel, which is the biggest supplier of PC chips. And AMD, last but not least, is looking to grow. Just a few days ago, on January 27th, it received the green light by Chinese regulators to purchase Xilinx. Xilinx has reported $1.1 billion in cash flow from operations, which would be a boon for AMD and will help AMD expand in the aerospace, space, and defense market. In today's conference call, AMD said they anticipate the deal to close in the first quarter of this year. We will have AMD's CEO on CNBC tomorrow morning on Squawk on the Street at 9:15 a.m. Tune in. All right.
So, Patrick, a couple of things there. And obviously, when they were going to have Dr. Lisa Su on the show the next day, I had to tape it, and I'll show that in a moment. A couple of things. What did you hear in that clip that was intriguing?
That I heard that they're first of all beating Intel to a pulp when it comes to the microprocessors, as well. The scale of the beat year over year, and another thing is the acquisition of Xilinx, which is going to allow AMD to go into other industries. And Xilinx is not a slouch itself. I mean, it also had strong earnings.
Absolutely. And the key thing is every time you hear data center and AMD is saying that they're going to beat on data center, what they are essentially saying is they're kicking Intel's butt. They're taking Intel's lunch like Debo. They're just killing it. And so if you look at Intel's most recent earnings, they were okay, but they were nothing like AMD's. And so AMD is taking market share. So I want to play, they referred to Dr. Lisa Su earlier, the following day. So I want to play just one segment from that interview the following day. So let's check this out, Patrick. And listen to Dr. Lisa Su talk about growth and their growth strategy. And listen for that word data center.
You can't talk directly about what's going to happen when you finally get approval of Xilinx, but there was some heartening news that you signed a deal with Nokia, which tells me I've always wanted you in telco. If you can get into that side of telco, fantastic. Get 5G, fantastic. Obviously, auto mentioned something you're doing. If I look at the mosaic of AMD 3 years from now, what would you like it to look like?
Yeah, no, thank you for, really the overall, if we look at our long-term strategy, first of all, we're thrilled about the progress we've made with Xilinx. Getting, SAMR approval last week was a very important, piece. We believe that we will close the transaction this quarter as we finish up the last regulatory approvals. But long-term, what it gives us is just a great diversification of businesses. It's always been sort of our strategy at AMD to take our, sort of great IP in, computing, both on the graphics side and on the CPU side, and really diversify into all of the markets that require high performance computing. So, we love the data center market. I mean, it's so strategic. If you talk about secular growth, I mean, this is the best place to be. We also love the PC market, but now we have the opportunity to really diversify into telco, communications across 5G, as well as industrial, as well as automotive. And so what you're going to see for AMD, really a few years from now, is we are the high performance computing leader that's really in all of the secular growth markets. And that will give us a long-term growth trajectory that's as exciting as our short-term trajectory in 2022.
That is my CEO that I'm crazy about. So, Patrick, did you hear that?
I heard it loud and clear. So the data centering, as well as expanding into various businesses, it's the expansion and the getting secular growth in all these different industries. And as I said, Xilinx is not a slouch itself. It too had great earnings, and it too has amazing products.
Man, I had to hit the mantra for Dr. Lisa Su. We're going to go into her background a little bit more because, again, we keep repeating the way of a company is the way of its leader, the CEO. So, yes, we're going to go in on her credentials a little more, but let's go into the earnings call because, Patrick, people are super busy. They often do not have time to get into the earnings call. So we're here to share that information. But would you encourage people to listen to the earnings call for the companies that they're willing to invest in?
Yeah, I think it's a game changer for sometimes because there are certain intricate details that are released during these earnings calls that you're not going to get on a canned website that just shows you various numbers.
Exactly.
You have to get the reactions from the analysts who ask these intelligent questions, these deeply probing questions about segment growth, about challenges, and so on and so forth. You're not going to get that in an earnings report.
Exactly. And when you look at TV, it's so quick. The segments are so quick. You do not get the detail. The other thing, Patrick, to consider about an earnings call is that the guys and gals, the analysts themselves, they really study the company. So they ask very intelligent questions and they are very skeptical. So they're not on TV just kind of promoting commercials and stuff. They're really going in with tough questions because they have crunched the numbers and they really understand the company. Now, Patrick, we talked about this a week ago. Again, can the CEO and CFO explaining things on these earnings calls, if they lie or make up stories, can they get in a lot of trouble?
Yeah, well, if you mislead investors about the financial and material aspects of a company, you could end up in jail. Like this, I think the Theranos CEO was making up stuff. She was basically running a Ponzi scheme, and she's going to go to jail.
Yeah, and so let's go into the earnings call for AMD. And let's listen to Dr. Lisa Su, our fave CEO, talk about most recent earnings. Now, listen to Dr. Su talk about where the growth of AMD is coming from. So I would advise you guys to not invest in Intel right now, even though they got that new hotshot CEO that used to run the company back in the day. So check out what Dr. Lisa Su said on this call.
For taking the question and congratulations on the quarter. Just thinking about the full year, guidance. I know that you had mentioned in your prepared remarks that you expect the semi-custom segment to grow. I'm curious if you could help us maybe appreciate how you're thinking about the semi-custom segment relative to the server segment, and whether or not that 30% contribution from total data center still applies for 2023, the outlook that you had provided at the last Analyst Day, or you think that we're tracking above that trend? Thank you.
Sure, Aaron. Thanks for the question. So for 2022, I mean, our current view is that we'll see growth in all of our businesses. We see strong demand for our products, as well as we have increased supply capability given what we've done with our partners. So relative to the growth from the different businesses, the growth will be led by server. So from what we see from customers and sort of design wins and platforms and all that, server will be very strong next year. But we also expect growth from our other businesses, including consoles, including our PC business, our graphics business, and our embedded business. So we expect the percentage of data center to continue to increase as we go into next year, and we'll give more on that as we go through the year.
Okay, so when you hear that server, that's data center, right? Uh-huh. So I just want our audience, when they listen to the earnings call, the data center and server, they're one and the same. And so I think a major supplier that used to control that server space is in a lot of trouble, Patrick.
Yeah, they are. They're just not innovating.
Exactly. All
They're
right,
not innovative. But not only that, I mean, when you acquire a company like Xilinx, which does programmable semiconductors. I mean, these are the semiconductors that just do many more tasks more efficiently.
Yeah, and we're going to get into Xilinx in a moment too. Dr. Lisa Su is going to talk about that a little bit and why that's exciting. So, all right, Patrick. So, in looking at that, the next analyst comes up and says, Dr. Su, so you see growth in servers, data centers. So are you sure you're not going to have supply chain issues to meet demand? Because if you're projecting the growth, how you know you're going to meet demand? Listen to what Dr. Lisa Su had to say about that.
For the whole team, but Lisa, congrats on getting close on Xilinx. Excited to see what that brings, and obviously the strong results. One of the questions I'm getting tonight is with such a strong start, greater than 30% guidance for revenue in 2022, can you just kind of walk us through, maybe with a little more specificity, some of the things that you've done in the supply chain around substrate, around back-end test and package, around wafer demand, and just to give people comfort that there's coverage there and visibility and the potential for upside, particularly as you take server and desktop onto 5 nanometer. I imagine 7 nanometer capacity won't go away. It'll stay as that new capacity comes online. So I just want to make sure I understand all the variables around the confidence in supply. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Thanks for the question. So, we've been working on, sort of the supply chain really for the last 4 or 5 quarters. Knowing the growth that we have from a product standpoint and the visibility that we have from customers. So, in regards to your question on 2022 supply environment, we've made significant investments in wafer capacity as well as substrate capacity and back-end capacity. We feel very good about our progress in the supply chain to meet the 2022 guidance. And our goal is frankly to have enough supply to satisfy the demand out there. So our view is we're going to continue to work with our partners and our customers to ensure that we know what they need. And likewise, our capacity investments are for 2022, but also beyond 22, because as a business grows, we need to continue to forecast and make plans for that, and that's what we've been working on.
Dr. Lisa Su.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that response, Patrick?
Ooh-wee. That's all I could say. They planned for this. It seems as if they anticipated supply chain issues across the industry.
Yeah, that's leadership. Go ahead, Patrick.
And they just knew how to work out these supply chain issues with the supplying partners.
Yeah, and they're gonna talk about the partners a little more on the earnings call. I'm gonna play that in a moment. But listen, so then another analyst steps up and say, all right, AMD, all right, Dr. Lisa Su. Yeah, you say you're gonna grow in server. You say you're going to make sure that you can make it, make your numbers because supply chain, you work that out already. So how are you confident that you can do that? And then listen to her response to that. And it's really going to talk in terms of chip supply for their competitor. And Lisa Su is going to reiterate why they're good on inventory. So check this out.
My question, Lisa, I wanted to get your thoughts on the competitive landscape in the server market this year versus last. Your competitor Intel is launching their Sapphire Rapids platform. They seem to be very excited about that. They're adding a lot of capacity in their fabs. Enterprise spending, which has tended to favor them in the past, is also coming back. So I'm just curious, how are you thinking about AMD's ability to gain more share in servers this year?
Yeah, Vivek. So look, we always expect the competitive environment to be to be very strong and very aggressive, and that's the way we plan our business. That being the case, I think we're very happy with the growth that we've seen in the business sort of last year, and as we look forward, we see opportunities in both cloud and enterprise. On the cloud side, we're in 10 of the largest hyperscalers in the world are using AMD. As they get familiar with us over multiple generations, they're expanding the workloads that they're using AMD on. So we see that across internal and external workloads. In the enterprise segment, we doubled year over year here in 2021. We continue to add more field support to have more people get familiar with our architecture. We have very strong OEM relationships, so I feel very good about our server trajectory. And yes, it's very competitive out there, but we think the data center business is a secular growth business, and within that, we can grow significantly faster than the market.
Wow. So, Patrick, We'll be taking questions from those who have questions. But when we buy a company, meaning invest in a company to buy shares, we're really buying growth, revenue growth, sales growth. Did Lisa Su give you a level of confidence that AMD is going to grow in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Excuse me. Yeah.
For
Because,
sure.
I mean, just the industries that they're in, and just being the leader in those industries.
Yeah, that competitor that we keep referring to may be in a lot of trouble, my friend. Now, let's keep going because we have a few more clips from the earnings call. All of these clips are about 1 minute clips, so they're about 1 to 1.5 minute clips. We have a few more to share. Listen to AMD's relationships, how their strategy, it's almost like an Apple strategy where they form these relationships with the companies that they work with. And then once they get in the AMD ecosystem, they build from that. So check this out, Patrick, what Dr. Lisa Su had to say.
A follow-up, Lisa. The semiconductor industry just went through a very tough time last year and even into this year, given all the supply shortages. I'm curious, what has that done to help you build, stronger relationships with your customers who are perhaps looking for a more consistent execution on the roadmap and more reliable sources of supply? So how has the shortage environment in semis changed the way customers are looking at AMD today than how they used to look at you historically?
Yeah, I think, Vivek, the most important thing that we are sort of working on with our customers is really consistent execution. And so when you look at the last year and sort of some of the supply demand imbalance, it has actually caused us to work much more closely with our customers. I think we have we're talking about visibility now, multiple quarters and in some cases multiple years out. For the type of capacity that we're talking about, for the size of the customers that we're talking to, we need to do that to plan to have the capability to support all of that capability. So overall, I think we have definitely deepened the relationships with customers. And by the way, also we've deepened the relationships with our supply chain partners. So I think the entire the entire food chain needs to come together to deliver on the very strong demand that's out there. So that's certainly what we've been working on.
I've drank the Kool-Aid, Patrick, as you can see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Well, she's essentially saying that she's in the relationship business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that relationship business is giving them the secular growth, that long-term growth that we want to have when we invest in a company. Now, one of the big things about the semiconductor space, which is a fancy word for, chips that go into computers and machinery, one of the big concerns is inventory, that all of the companies, because since there's a worldwide shortage, that companies are going to order too many chips, right? And so they're going to have this glut of take all of the chips they can get, and then in the future, when demand goes down because everyone around the world just had a glut of chips, then the companies like AMD, Nvida and company, they would have produced too many chips, and so then the price of chips will go down, sales projections will go down, predictability will go down, stock will go down. That would be bad. So I want you to hear what Dr. Lisa Su said to this analyst about the CPU inventory in chips. Check this out.
Great, thank you. Congrats on the strong results, Lisa. I had two questions as well, one relatively short term and one on Xilinx. The short-term question, just on Q1 revenue, you're obviously guiding total company revenue up on a sequential basis. Your nearest competitor talked about CPU inventory corrections in the quarter. Is that something that you're seeing in the market? And if so, is that contemplated in your guidance?
Sure, Toshiya, thanks for the question. So yeah, our guide in Q1 actually is up sequentially. You know, usually we're down sequentially just given normal seasonality, but the demand patterns are such that demand is strong and we have additional supply coming on board, and so that's why we're guiding sequentially up. As it relates to CPU inventory, whether in PCs or in servers, we don't believe there is any significant inventory of our products, whether at our customers or sort of in the retail or channel. So from that standpoint, I think we've been watching very carefully the sell-in and sell-through patterns, and we believe we're matched to end user demand.
So a lot of confidence there, Patrick, as it comes to inventory. Now let me just flip over to what Dr. Lisa Su had to say about Xilinx, and an analyst asked about this on the call.
On Xilinx, it's been a while since your initial announcement. I'm sure you've had, quite a bit of back and forth with your customers. You've had time to monitor how they've been performing as a standalone company. How has your view on the company and sort of the technology and the potential revenue synergies going forward evolved at all? I know, you're still waiting to close this thing, so maybe you can't say too much, but just curious how your view on things have evolved as it relates to Xilinx. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm extremely excited about Xilinx. I mean, I would say that we very much have been planning for the integration over this period of time. We've had customers anxious to talk to us about combined roadmaps. When we think about sort of the technology that they have, it's very complementary to ours. Very, very strong team. And their business results were just posted last week, and their business is also doing very, very well. So I think the combination is going to be very exciting. We look forward to telling you a lot more about it as we get to close and beyond.
Any feedback there, Patrick?
Yeah, it's like I said, there seems to be a lot of synergies between the two companies, and not only that, you're also buying a company that's not merely a turnaround story that has great technology and great people. You're buying a company that already is performing at the top of its field, and you got all these different avenues that Xilinx does that would enhance the revenue streams for AMD.
Yes. Yeah, Xilinx is big in the embedded business, which is the little small, low-powered processors that go into cars and medical devices and stuff like that.
Yeah, 5G and stuff.
Right, so Xilinx is going to really open that market up to AMD. AMD, if we did not make it clear before, AMD recently got approved to purchase Xilinx. So with AMD purchasing Xilinx, that's going to bring all of that business into AMD, and the synergy is just going to look really good for a great future growth story. And again, when we buy stocks, we buy growth. And so hopefully our audience is getting a sense of why the earnings call is so important and how you can get additional detail by just listening to the call. So, and if you like what you hear, like the video and subscribe. Hopefully we're bringing some content that you appreciate and bringing value. Now, Patrick, not only are they doing business, they're buying Xilinx, but there's another company out there that AMD is doing business with in the telecommunications sector. Check this out.
My question, I was curious on the EPYC side. In the preamble, you have clearly strong trends in cloud, enterprise, and HPC. I was curious on the comm channel. You had a press release recently with Nokia. I know it's kind of early days, but any kind of comments you had in terms of your design progress there? It's kind of the last area that you haven't really penetrated in servers.
Yeah, sure, Blaine. It's still very early, but yeah, we're very happy with the partnership with Nokia that was announced. As you said, this is an area where we're early in the cycle. It's an area where we're building relationships, and so I feel good about the progress there. But I would say it's still quite early. And then you didn't ask this, but just one of the other things with the communications and 5G, as we bring Xilinx into the equation, they also have very deep relationships with a number of these accounts, and so we see that as an incremental positive as we think about EPYC in communications.
They're killing it. They're gonna kill it, Patrick.
Yes.
I believe it. Strong. Again, that Xilinx, purchasing Xilinx, that integration, just opening up the whole market rather than just be focused on GPUs, which is graphics processing units, and competing with Nvidia, which we'll talk about in a moment. They're expanding, not just CPUs, the computers that they used to compete with Intel and servers. Now they're just going across that embedded, small, low-powered chip sector, and Xilinx is just going to take them to the next level.
Yeah.
So, you want to say something there?
Yeah. Just something general. That this is a company that is expanding its many streams of income. So it's not relying on just any one source, and they're fortifying those multiple streams of income.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want too. You want
exactly.
a company, because we're buying growth. When you buy a company, you're buying growth. So the more ways they can grow into the future, we keep repeating ourselves. But all right, so Patrick, listen to this. I'm going to play the mantra out after this one, maybe. So another analyst goes and asks Dr. Lisa Su about a big issue in the chip space. And that big issue in the chip space is that a lot of these companies are now designing their own chips. They're designing their own processors, a la Apple. When you look at Apple recently came up with the M1 chip. We talked about that a week ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they do not use Qualcomm as much, or Intel as much, I should say. They're going into their own chip design. So companies, that's a risk for a company like AMD, right? So listen to this analyst ask about cannibalization, about companies and the companies that they work with designing their own chips, which could cut down AMD business, so their numbers may not be what they think their numbers are. And listen to Dr. Lisa Su's respond to that.
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. I had one for Lisa and one for Devinder, if I may. Lisa, it seems like one of the potential threats to the merchant processor players like yourself is that your own customers are designing their own processors, and I'm wondering, does AMD have a role working with your customers to provide customized solutions, be it tweaking x86 or co-designing something more specific together, hand in hand? I don't know if Xilinx would play a role in that. Could you just talk about what you're doing on with your customers and on that effort?
Yeah, sure, Mark. So, actually, it's a very exciting area. It's, just consider it an evolution of, we've always had a semi-custom model, like the work that we do with the console guys to design specifically for their application. As we look at the broader set of applications, including some of these data center applications, we do believe that there's a sort of the next leg of the stool in terms of deep customer relationships. So we already do a lot of customization around product SKUs and specific optimization points, but we can certainly imagine both customer IP or different incarnations of our IP to really optimize. Because as these applications end up really requiring so much volume, it really does justify additional customization for those cases.
So no fear of cannibalization or competitive from customers because of them designing their own chip. I thought that was a good response. What was your thought on that, Patrick?
Yeah, I thought that they have an innovative solution to their customers designing their own chips, because they do that through customization.
Right, they work with their customers, and when that's their semi-customs portion of the business. So when you hear Dr. Lisa Su, and if you go back and listen to some of the responses, especially one of the first clips I played from the conference call, the earnings call, you would hear her refer to semi-customs. And that's what that is. Semi-customs is when they work with their customers to customize their semiconductors, a la semi-customs, to win that business. So very smart, innovative stuff they're doing so that their customers do not become their competitors. And so here's the last clip, Patrick, and this last one from the earnings call. And there's so many more responses. If you go and look at AMD, I'll listen to AMD conference call, you'll hear more. But these are just some of the highlights I had for you guys on the show today. This one is talking about how AMD is penetrating the embedded space, the small, low-powered chips, and how Xilinx may play a part in that.
Hi, good afternoon. Just wanted to ask about your embedded business. It's not often talked about, but it's a great market, right? Diversified across various end markets. You can also leverage your leading edge and mature portfolio. You've got a pretty good lineup of EPYC-based and Ryzen-based processors targeting embedded. You've also gotten some pretty good design win traction in automotive with guys like Tesla. You've got wins in retail with digital signage, wins in networking, IoT edge platforms. And then with Xilinx, you can sort of really leverage their exposure in industrial, automotive, comm, and consumer end markets. It's a small part of the business today, but how do you see the embedded opportunity for AMD looking out over the next several years?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Harlan. Look, I like the embedded business. I've always liked the embedded business. It's nice, sticky business over many years. It is smaller, but it has grown nicely, and the volume design wins in automotive, and they've now sort of expanded their usage. They've recently expanded their usage over a broader part of their product portfolio. We've focused on networking and storage as key markets. I do think there is a very good synergy with Xilinx in terms of just the customer set and the channels, and so I do see it as a nice grower for us as we go through it, and there's very good reuse from our server products as well as our client products. So we'll talk a little bit more about it as the business gets to more size, and that'll be part of our financial analyst day conversation when we get to that in June.
So that financial analyst day in June coming up. So I would recommend our audience look out for that and listen in for that. Patrick, that's something we need to keep on our radar for the future. So, that is AMD. If our audience was not familiar with AMD before, I hope they're more familiar with AMD now. And let's talk about the leader of AMD, Patrick. This particular person here, Dr. Lisa Su. And so the way of the company is the way of whom?
The CEO.
The CEO controls everything. And you can just look at Dr. Lisa Su, a little bit about her background here, that she's turned around AMD. And Patrick, you're going to show some charts in a moment, but AMD was a perennial kind of average performing company. They competed with Intel and was losing. And Dr. Lisa Su joined the company in 2012 and then later became the CEO in 2014 and has led the company's stock more than 25-fold. Yeah, so she's originally from Taiwan, grew up in New York City. She moved over to the U.S. as a child, grew up in New York, and got her PhD. Well, where did she get her degree from, Patrick?
She got it from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the leading engineering school.
The leading engineering school in the country. How would I know? I'm an engineer. But not only did she get a bachelor's in electrical engineering, a master's, and PhD in electrical engineering. So here's a couple of important things here, Patrick. One is you have a CEO that's been with the company a long period of time. So that tenure is there. That great leadership is there. We like that. That's why we like the Jensen Huang of the Nvida. That's why we like Tim Cook with Apple. You want those CEOs that's been there for a while. Number two, the other thing we like about this is she's an engineer, a PhD engineer leading a technology company. We do not have a marketing person or something like that. We have a technical person that can make the right decisions to lead the company. So you want to invest in great, competent leaders. And then lastly, she has some incredible managerial accomplishments, Patrick.
Yes.
Would you like to share some of
absolutely.
And if you were to go to their website, you could see these accomplishments of Dr. Su here. So, and those are the kind of companies we will want to buy. We want to buy companies where our probability of losing is low and we can believe in the leader of that company to make the right decisions. And we keep talking about that. So, Patrick, are you ready to share that, or are you having technical issues?
I'm sharing it right now.
Okay, let's get Dr. Lisa Su up here on the screen for our audience. Okay, so what do you have here, Patrick?
So what I have here is just a profile of Dr. Lisa Su from the AMD website, and anyone could click onto the links and go and check out her credentials and her past. So prior to joining AMD as the CEO, Dr. Su served as a senior vice president and general manager, networking, multimedia at Freescale Semiconductor. And then prior to that, Dr. Su spent the previous 13 years at IBM in various engineering and business leadership positions, including vice president of the Semiconductor Research and Development Center, responsible for the strategic direction of IBM Silicon Technologies, joint venture development alliances, and semiconductor R&D operations. And as mentioned before, her educational background is that she has a bachelor degree, master's degree, and PhD degrees from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in electrical engineering.
Sorry, Patrick.
That's great. No, that's fantastic. And some of the recent accolades that she's enjoyed are 2022 International Peace Honors honoree, 2021 Forbes 100 Most Powerful Women, 2021 IEEE Robert and Noyce Medal, among many of these others. I mean, again, go to the website and then you can see some of the featured accolades and her educational and professional background.
What about her management background? Do you have anything referring to some of the management schools and training she went to accomplish? Do you have anything there?
No, I didn't find any. I didn't see anything.
Because I thought she went to the Yale Management School or something like that.
No, she was featured by the Yale Management School of Business.
Okay, all right.
As the Chief Executive Leadership Institute honors Dr. Lita Su with the Legend in Leadership Award.
Yeah.
So even though that she has, mostly a technical background, the fact is she knows how to manage people.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, this is a rarity to have someone who is such a great leader and someone who has the technical know-how. I mean, there are very, very few leaders that have that. You're talking about maybe Bill Gates, Steve Jobs.
What about Jensen Huang?
I was about to mention that. Jensen Huang, who got a master's degree from Stanford in engineering. In fact, they've named the school after Jensen Huang.
Wow.
At Stanford University.
Yeah.
I mean, this is leadership that actually changes the way we do things.
So the reason why we keep bringing Jensen up is because AMD and Nvidia are big competitors, super competitors. Mm-hmm. Which one do you go with? We've been singing the Nvidia mantra all last year. We sing AMD none to little. A little bit, but we really been singing Nvidia. So Patrick, where are you? Nvidia or AMD?
I would say invest in both.
You pushed. I think you can. And guess what? I'm invested in both. I am. I mean, they're both battling it out. You got, like Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. They're both battling it out. And I am invested in both. But I'm a little more in Nvidia, just to be honest. But I am invested in both. That's a great answer. Before we wrap up the show, let's do a couple of things because we're running a little long on time. Let's look at the 200-day moving average on AMD. Let's take a quick look at that if we could, Patrick. It'll be interesting to show our audience the exponential 200 moving, I should say 200 period, because the 200 could be days, weeks, months, or what have you, depending on the frequency. So let's look at the 200-day on AMD so our audience can look at least the high-level technicals of what we're seeing.
Okay.
All right.
So, are we ready?
Yep, we are.
Okay, so this is from bar chart. And this is Advanced Micro Devices chart over a 10-year period.
So let's start at 20-year and look back.
Okay, we can go 20 years. Okay, so let's take a look at the 20-year period. And this is a monthly frequency. So this is a monthly bar chart. And this is a 200-month moving average. So this goes all the way back to 2003. So right here, the company did not have much leadership. It seemed to meander about the 200-day move or the 200 period moving average. And this is where it was losing share to Intel. It was not competing well with Intel. Lisa Su came in around 2014, which would be here.
She came in 2012, became CEO in 2014.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected. So she came in 2012 and then got promoted to CEO around 2014.
Yes.
And then, what happened? Give me 1 second. And then ultimately, technical issues aside.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of live YouTube, Patrick. But I can pull us right back when you're ready. Are you ready?
No, I have it.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so
So 2014, and it took her a few years to turn the company around, right?
Yeah, which it should, anyways. Especially if a company that was in such disrepair when she gained the reins of the company.
And you can look back to 2007, how the stock stayed below the red line, which is the exponential 200 period.
Yes.
And so,
go ahead.
No.
In this case,
go ahead.
In this case, it's the 200 monthly moving average over a 20-year period.
Right. And so you can see for many years, the company back to 2007, after the crash, it was below that period. And then Lisa came in and took over the reins of CEO in 14. And then within 3 years, boom, we've been above that monthly. Ever since. Now let's bring it down to 10-year period and take a look there, Patrick. Quick.
Okay. So the frequency is going to be the same over a 10-year period. So again, we're looking at monthly charts or monthly bars. And this is, again, a 200 period. So in this case, a 200 monthly exponential moving average. And as you see, the chart or the moving average is pointing upwards, and the graph here, the bars
way above.
So you're getting higher highs all the time and higher lows all the time.
And just for those who are new to the show, we are more fundamentalists. So when it comes to technical analysis, and that's what we're showing right now, we usually just look at the exponential 200. Well, not just, but this is one of the indicators we look at, the exponential 200-day. And we want the stock to remain above the exponential 200-day. In this case, on a monthly basis over, 10 years? AMD.
This is a 10-year chart.
AMD does. And that tells us that we have a long-term investable growth stock. Okay, so let's go 5-year, Patrick. Exponential.
We'll go over a five-year pattern.
Well, on a weekly. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this would be a 200 weekly moving average. And again, it's staying above the 200 weekly moving average on a 5-year period. And once again, it's sloping upwards, this chart.
That's important.
Higher highs and higher lows.
Yep, Patrick. So, I mean, very, very important stuff. And let's keep it there. We're going to go to the 1 year most recent activity, and maybe we will see some buying opportunities. Let's check out over a 1 year period.
Okay, so here we're looking at a daily 1 year chart. So this is a 200-day moving average. And the stock has mostly stayed above the 200 daily moving average, except for recently during this market correction that we've experienced since November. But the whole tech sector has suffered during this time. So it's not just AMD, it's Nvida, and it's of course a lot of these companies that don't have earnings, that they have just a lot of revenue and a lot of cash burns, if you will.
Right.
But this is a company that has earnings, and so this is going to have staying power, especially with what we just communicated throughout this show.
It looks like, Patrick, it looks like every time it touched that 200-day, that might be a good buying opportunity.
Yes, because it didn't stay below right here. It's briefly below the 200 daily moving average. And so you got 3 parts right here. And then it just exploded upwards and stayed up for a considerable amount of time until, you had a market correction. And again, it right here just did a little bit of a dip. And right now it's back above the 200 period moving average.
Now, Patrick, and the projections for the future are great. We just went through that. with Dr. Lisa Su. So this is a good stock to consider. We will be
Yes.
featuring Nvidia, AMD's largest competitor. They've already ate Intel's lunch, but AMD cannot. I mean, they've been battling it out with Nvidia, and Nvidia. That's my pick, Patrick. I like AMD a lot. I got some invested in AMD, but I need to see Nvidia's returns in a week. I think it's a week from this upcoming Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, but a week from this upcoming Wednesday. Nvidia reports, and certainly we'll go into a deeper analysis similar with Jason Wong and Nvidia, right? So we'll
Yes.
do that. And wrapping up the show, before we wrap up, let's take a quick look at Yahoo and look at the statistics and the analysis. Let's start with the analysis and look at the growth projections for AMD. We always do this in somewhat of our fundamental analysis. So it would be interesting to see what is the projected growth rate of AMD after seeing all of that other stuff from Lisa Su. So
Okay, so here I am. Do you have it?
yeah, we have it up, my friend.
Great.
So,
So
tell the audience where we are, by the way.
Okay, so where I am is I'm on Yahoo Finance. You type in the ticker symbol AMD or whatever stock you're following, and then you go to the analysis section right here. The section that's in black, and then you scroll all the way down to see the growth prospects.
Yeah, and we're looking at the projected growth per what the analysts think, and that's what we pay for. I keep repeating the same thing. Go ahead, Patrick. Look at the growth that AMD is projected.
So we're looking at current quarter of 75%.
75%.
Yes. Next quarter, a little more than 52%. Current year, well, 43.5%. Next year, just short of 18%. And the next 5 years, how about this? More about a 34.33%.
That's incredible. Incredible, Patrick. Incredible. Exactly. That's incredible. Good numbers. If you look up a lot of companies, no one can touch that but a very few companies. Even Apple numbers do not look like that. And we're a big supporter of Apple. Let's go to the statistics real quick, Patrick, and let's look at some of the key metrics on the statistics. Let's look at the forward PE ratio, which we always look at. Let's look at the PEG ratio and the management effectiveness, the return on assets, return on equity, to give our audience that perspective if we can.
Yes. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Let me stop sharing this one.
So that would be very interesting to see, because I really want to give our audience a good perspective on the risks of investing in AMD.
Okay. Analyst and valuation. Yeah.
Miss Jams, I'm going to pull that question out of the chat up in a moment. That's a good question. All right, Patrick.
So here we are, advanced micro devices, making sure we got the right ticker symbol. Okay, so here we are. So this is the current. These are the current numbers here. Yep. So the trailing PE, which is backwards looking, is 46, little shy of 47. But the forward PE is 29, which is reasonable.
Yeah, and that's what we look at, actually. We're more focused on the forward PE. That projects if the price of the stock is cheap comparably to the future growth.
But how about...
And listen, real quick though, Patrick, we want that forward PE to be 30 or less than 30, and better 20 or less. It's hard to get, but less than 30 for sure. But go ahead. Now let's look at the PEG ratio.
So here's the PEG ratio. So the PEG ratio is 1.5 multiple. We usually like to see a multiple of about 2 or less.
Correct.
1 even better. However, the PEG ratio's been going up, so stock's gotten a little bit more expensive. However, the growth is justified.
Yeah, I think AMD deserves that premium in PEG, and that lets you know if your forward PE is actually more expensive than it is, because sometimes the forward PE can look cheap, but the PEG ratio would say is not really cheap. And like you said, Patrick, less than 2. Ultimately, we want 1, 1.5. And if you look at the past on AMD, if you look at that past, 1.5 is a little pricey compared to past quarters. But they just had a blowout quarter report, and we just went through that. So the premium may be justified. It's a little scary in this inflationary environment. Let's go down, Patrick, to the management effectiveness, profitability, because we always look at return on equity and return on assets, and we want that to be at least 15% for strong companies. So what do we have here?
Okay, so the profit margin.
No, let's look at management effectiveness.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so return on assets, that's 21.33%. And then return on equity, that's just below, 47.5. So essentially 50%.
Crazy good numbers. So a very, very solid company. It's hard to beat numbers like that, and that's why Dr. Lisa Su is our fave lady CEO. Now, Patrick, AMD number compared to Nvidia numbers. Did you do a comparison, because we're big Nvidia people? Does Nvidia numbers come in? How do they look in comparison?
I think the Nvidia numbers are somewhat more impressive.
Okay, well, let's save that for another show since we're running out of time, and our audience can go back and do that. Let's get a quick question from the chat before we wrap it up, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get a quick question from the chat. And we have a question here. And can you read that question, Patrick? Overall stock market question?
Yes.
Did you see that? Let me put it back up.
Oh, okay, I have it here. Overall stock market question. What do you think happened with the downfall in the market last Friday? What major event caused this? So I would say that it's just probably just general fears about inflation and interest rates going higher. Maybe the threat of war between Russia and Ukraine, and worrying about gasoline supplies, but this is general bearishness in the equity market, and so people probably didn't want to hold positions going into the weekend. So the trajectory of the market, at least back then, was very, very weak, and this was probably creating a bottoming process right now. We're going through a bottoming process. I think we've seen the lows for the market, and I think last week was a very good indication of that.
Yeah, there was a number of reports that came out, jobs market report, all kinds of different inflationary metric points to let us know that inflation is real. So interest rates are going up. So when interest rates are high, what happens, Patrick?
Stocks die.
Yeah, stocks would die. That's the old saying. So when interest rates are high, stocks would die. Interest rates, there was fears based on the data last week, that Jerome Powell needs to raise interest rates. And not only by a quarter basis points, but maybe by 50 basis points, which would be even more. So most pundits, big word for experts, believe a quarter basis point is still on the field, the playground for the next hike, and the interest rate hike is supposed to come in March, right? So, but that was the concern. Some data came out related to that. But go ahead, Patrick. I cut you off.
Yeah, but however, the latest inflationary reports, or not necessarily the CPI or the PPI, but other reads, seem to indicate that the inflation might be peaking.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. I'm not convinced that inflation is peaking, but I see a lot of the pundits on TV say that, and they're a lot smarter than I am, for sure. But yeah, a lot of people say that, and I'm not necessarily thinking the market has hit its bottom too. If you listen to some of the smart guys like Meet Kevin and other guys that do commentary on this type of stuff, they believe the market can go down further. This is why I am a big proponent of long-term investing. So keep investing long-term, dollar cost average. We did a show maybe a month ago on dollar cost average, and just put a little away in leaders like Dr. Lisa Su, Jason Wong with Nvidia, Tim Cook with Apple, just to name a few. Sadella with Microsoft,
Jim
Santanu,
Farley, Ford.
Santanu, Adobe. Those are the type of leaders that you put money in and you buy the company stocks while they're cheap or lower price, I would say. And then over the long term, they're going to grow and make you happy. In the long term, 5 years or more. So that's where we are there. I think we have another question, Patrick. And
Okay, so let me read this out. So, question: didn't Meta and Apple dip quite a bit?
Meta got blown.
Yes. So let me entertain that question.
Apple
First of
did
all,
not dip quite a bit, but Meta.
yeah. Meta. What happened is that they anticipate slowing user growth, and the revenue and the bottom line numbers were not as strong as guidance, not as strong as analysts were hoping, and so Meta dropped by about from low 300s a share to about 250. It was about $70 drop. I mean, quite horrific.
Yeah. Oh man.
On the case of Apple,
hold on for a second. We got the lead attorney in the building. Salute to the lead attorney in the building. Thank you, lead. Thank you for everything you do for us and the show. Go ahead, Patrick. I interrupt you. I had to shout out the lead attorney.
Yeah, much love to the lead attorney, and I would highly suggest going to see his show.
Oh yeah, the lead attorney is fire. If you haven't seen the lead attorney show, go over there and just check it out.
That's a must.
Black man.
That's a must.
Go
watch.
ahead, Patrick. Continue, please.
But anyways, Apple. So conversely, Apple did a great job with its earnings, and it guided higher, much higher. Yep. And so the stock was trading at around 155 a share, and then around 160 a share before the blowout earnings, and then after that, it surged up to 170, and right now I think it's around 172 a share.
Yep. So yeah, we got blown up on that stock. I got blown up on the Facebook stock. I mean, I took that one on the chin, but that's part of the investment game, right? Some you win, some you lose. You manage your risk, and you ensure that you don't blow up your account when the losers hit. But none of us are perfect. It's a probability game. Overall, you want to win more than you lose. So hopefully that answered your question, Miss Jams. Patrick, I think that's our show for today. And let's wrap it up. So, as always, this is the Bet Out of That show. We call it the Bet Out of That show because when you place a trade, it's a metaphor for investing, and we call it placing a bet. And hopefully it's a winning one to keep you out of debt. And as always, keep investing. We'll be back next Sunday, 8:15 a.m. as always. And a special shout out to the lead attorney and our moderator, Miss Jams. Take care, guys, and we will see you next time.